I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Hunters After Show. I'm here with my co-host, Keven, and we're going to dive into episode 4. And this episode is called The Pious Thieves. And today we're going to be talking about Morris tracking down Jonah at his home, and also the amazingly interesting bank heist, which was just, fantastic. And also we're going to dive into the evils of neutrality with our good friend, Frederick Hauser. And then we have a little special segment for you guys and some news to spill as well. So you guys should stick around for that. And we're also going to we're gonna dive into it. I'm your host, Janice. I don't know if I introduced myself. Sometimes I forget, but I just want to hear, Keven, what was going through your mind when you were watching this?
I love a good heist episode or movie or anything. So I was totally down for this episode. This whole episode was full of clues and puzzles and things to solve, and I just eat that up. So I dug it. I really enjoyed the side story that was going along, and when it finally meshed with what was happening in the present, that was super powerful.
It was hard for me to place what time Maya was with our friend Frederick, because they didn't really show when they met. I mean, they did show when they met, but we didn't really have the context of what time they were talking. And then at the end they had this cool thing where the whole story just both stories came together, and we saw why they were talking. Because the entire time I was like, why is he talking to this guy? What is the relation to our main story, which is the heist?
There was something about that, and I should have paid more attention to his suits, trying to figure out if was this multiple trips on multiple days, but there was something about the
way it was filmed.
I assumed it was all shot in the same day.
Yeah, I think so. It's just a very, very cool way of editing it.
Yeah, there was just something about the editing, though, that did make me wonder what the timeline was.
Yeah, but I definitely agree with you. Sorry,
whatever it was, though, it was very powerful. It was.
I'm a huge fan of heists as well on TV and in movies. If you guys watch this show called Animal Kingdom on, I think it's on USA.
The reality show that's just animals?
No. There's an actual show called Animal Kingdom with this family, and they're all their family of gangsters.
Okay, yeah,
and
you're right.
they all go on this amazing heist every episode, and it's just the most interesting
check
thing
it out
to watch.
when I'm done with Hunters.
Hunters definitely gave me vibes of that show, so I'm definitely there for it. I'm there for people shooting Lonnie. Is that his name? Lonnie?
I was not down for that.
I was down for it. I was like, is he dead? I mean,
I thought he was. I was like, oh my God,
too,
the show.
Because
just when it's
Sister Harriet was, I don't know, did she know that? She did know it was blanks, but the way she reacted, I was like, oh, wow.
No, she sold it.
Yeah, she definitely did.
She's got her own set of acting talent.
Yeah, but I was wondering why she was pretending,
Well, so one thing we didn't touch on in our last episode was the possibility that she might be a double agent. I don't know if you caught that she made some phone calls. Last episode, episode 3, visions of soft as dancing in your head.
Wow.
There was a point where she made a phone call to someone and did it in German, warning everyone that the hunters were getting closer. So it kind of implied that she might be a double agent. But at the same time, outside of that one instance, she seems super invested in what they are doing. And this heist thing was the stakes on this bank heist were incredible. If anything went wrong, they would get found out as a group.
Exactly.
The Nazis would understand that they're on their tail. They would go to European jail for freaking ever. And they could get murdered. So if she wanted to sabotage them, this was the ultimate time to do it. And especially when she had so many opportunities to do it. She was the stakeout. She was in charge of security. She had to sell Lonnie's performance.
Yeah.
And she had to deal with the security guards. She could have ruined everything. But she didn't.
Yeah. Why do you think she didn't? Maybe she's just waiting for the perfect time.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm so interested to find out what it is she's doing.
Yeah.
If she's a double agent or a triple agent or what. Who knows?
Right now I'm trusting her, but when you bring up that point that she might be a double agent, I could probably see that, because in the last episode, she went off to meet with this mystery guy in the park, and the guy gives her, I think it was a bomb.
No, those are the blueprints for the bank that they were heisting. But it's until they laid it out on the table, I have no idea what she was meeting.
Interesting. Yeah, she hasn't really given me any.
She hasn't given any clues.
If
she's a double agent, she's really, really good.
Yeah. Also, she's a sister, so we're all supposed to trust sisters. So maybe that's part of her whole ploy.
And I'm going to touch on that in our special segment, but I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Yeah, we're going to dive into it. So let's dive into our first topic. So we have Morris tracking down Jonah at his home. And
everyone's finding his home.
He's very easy to find, apparently, you know?
Yeah.
Our good friend Travis was literally in his house, just like lounging on his bed.
You keep calling all these Nazis our good friend. And I know you mean that sarcastically. Like you're totally full of irony when you say it, but I hate it.
Yeah.
Like they're not good people. They're terrible.
Good or bad enemies. Travis. Yeah, Travis was just like lounging on Jonah's bed and like checking out his friends. He was like looking at
the photo of the guy he just murdered. Yeah.
And then he sees. Is this when he sees the work schedule for Jonah? Oh, that was
last night. He's just now he's just back at the home, like going for round 2 of sneaking up on Jonah.
Yeah.
And instead, Morris shows up. And he could have taken her out. And it would have been broad daylight. But
Jonah's friends were outside too, so it wouldn't probably have been a good idea. But it's just so interesting that, you know, this FBI agent is like 5 steps behind this Nazi guy.
A little bit.
Who is definitely really good at what he's doing, and he has this drive that no one can stop.
Yeah, he's already surpassed her because she was in Florida first, and he trailed her there and then caught up, and now he's ahead of her.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I knew he would be stalking the group, and I knew she would. And at some point toward the end of the season, I thought their paths would cross. Yeah. But I've never seen a villain work so quickly as to surpass the secondary antagonist.
I think he definitely has to. That's his job. You know? That's why they brought him in.
He's
really
so
good.
effective.
That's why I'm so excited to see his backstory. I really hope we get to see that in the coming episodes. He's just such a fascinating character. He's so dark, and I just want to see where all that darkness stems from, and you know, what his actual goal is. Right now we think, you know, he just wants to have some, you know, authority in this whole Nazi government that they're building. But like, what is his actual need in getting that? Like, what would that achieve for him? Did he have like a dad who didn't, you know, see him as anything, and he's like trying to prove that to everyone else? Like, it's a lot of possibilities, and I'm definitely interested in diving more into that in the coming episodes, hopefully. And yeah, so we've talked about the bank heist.
We talked about, some of it.
Yeah. Were you kind of surprised to see that there was a second door behind the door?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone was.
What did you think was down there before they even like opened it?
Oh, God, I didn't know. I thought it was plans, because I know that this whole past 4 episodes, they keep dropping more clues about what they're building or doing or plotting. Nazis are going to plot. So I thought it was plans. I thought the safe deposit box was essentially a mailbox where people could pass things from one another. You know, I've got this letter or this memo or these plans or whatever crucial piece of information that needs to be passed along. I'll leave it here for someone to pick up. The same way that she met that man in the park and they did their exchange there.
Yeah.
I thought the Nazis were doing their exchange in the safe deposit box.
I was very confused as to what was supposed to be in this box 630.
So when Mindy opened it up and it was empty, I was like, they missed it. They missed the trade-off. That's all. I never expected that there was a secret room back there.
And we have another open sesame moment. We've had, this is our second one throughout the whole show. But later on in the episode, it was an amazing revelation, to be honest. We find out that box 630 is owned by a man named Oscar Humptman, and he's called the Ghost, and he used to be a doctor, and he's supposed to be like this scary guy. Meyer talks about it.
He's supposed to be dead.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be dead, and he's not. So we have, you know, some fear. Meyer actually seemed pretty afraid when, you know, he realized that. So I'm definitely interested in seeing who this character is and
I
his
wanted
connection
to know immediately.
Meyer. Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is apparent. Like, I mean, they've already got Morris on their like sniffing around them, which is, she, for all intents and purposes, she is an antagonist. She is a threat to their plan, someone who could get in the way of their mission.
Yeah.
Not a villain.
I want us to dive more into that.
But she's an antagonist, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got Travis, who is the villain, but he's really just the dragon working for the big bad, which is the Colonel.
The Colonel, yeah.
And so I'm like, there's already a lot of problems out there sniffing around them. And now that there's this other guy, the ghost, who is making Meyer sweat, I was like, okay, what other crisis are they going to have to deal with?
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we had the doctor in, I think, episode 2 who had all the teeth, the one who was killed, and Morris went to visit, and then she found all the teeth in his little drawer. So we have another doctor, and I'm just like, who is this doctor? And like, is he going to be worse than this guy who's collecting children's teeth?
Yeah, I forget his name, and I'm like, oh god, are they related? I just can't,
but I want to
keep
talk
straight.
a little bit about where Morris's loyalties lie, because when Travis called the colonel and was telling her that there was this FBI agent who was trying to track down, the killers of all these Nazis, and then the colonel was like, oh, let's leave her, she's on our side, blah blah blah. And then we have Meyer make this comment that Jonah, you don't have to tell this woman anything, she's not on our side. So I just want to hear what you're thinking about that whole situation. It's a very cool dichotomy, because cops are supposed to be, or FBI agents are supposed to be the good guys. But in this case, it's hard. It's like the lines are blurred and we don't really know. I don't know if you have any thoughts.
I do. She is on the side of good, or of right. We'll say she's on the side of right.
Yeah.
She is following the law. She is imposing the law. That is what she is loyal to. The hunters are fighting for justice. The Nazis are fighting for power. She is fighting for the rule of law.
Absolutely.
So it's not that she's like pro-Nazi by any means.
Yeah.
But I think she's completely unaware of what the Nazis are doing. The Nazis, as of this moment, aren't going around murdering people, with the exception of Biff Simpson, who took out his whole family and they blamed it on someone. Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
okay,
they are.
Let me backtrack.
I mean, they're reacting.
Well, yeah. Okay, as far as the FBI knows, Nazis aren't going around killing people. What they do know is someone is going around killing these old people who happen to be Nazis.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So they've got the Son of Sam killer. They've got this other serial killer attacking this older crowd of war refugees or veterans. And then there's just the grandmother and Booty Hole. Yeah. So I can't help but chuckle every time I hear his name. I'm sorry. Yeah. I think to Morris, those two murders are this small isolated thing that is related to Jonah, not related to Nazis. Right. She's not aware of what evil the Nazis are perpetrating. So as far as she knows, they're just bad people living quiet lives.
Right.
And the people going around murdering everyone is possibly Jonah.
I completely agree with you.
So
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
My only problem with Morris is she claims to be all about the law, but she didn't tell her supervisors about her going on all these trips and investigating all these Nazis. And good for her that she's not telling her bosses, because as we found out in the previous episodes, the colonel says, they have Nazis who have infiltrated the FBI. So if she did do that, she would probably get pulled up this case, and we don't know what the hell would happen.
Yeah.
So good for her. So I want to go ahead and move on to our next topic, which is I'm not going to call him our good friend, our terrible person.
Thank you.
Horrible person called Frederick Hauser, whom we're introduced to him, and he just seems like this, obnoxious, Wall Street guy. He's just like sitting behind his desk and he's giving advice to Myers about like creating an account where, no, the government can't see, so you don't get taxed and all that. And I'm just like, oh, this guy is just sketchy. And then later on, as we've come to realize on this show, everyone's a Nazi. So what are your thoughts about this guy and like where his character went?
Well,
did you see that coming at all, or
that he was housing all this like secret Nazi loot?
Yeah.
That was
Did you know that?
stolen Jewish goods?
Yeah.
No,
he
because
does
again,
say he's not a Nazi, so
I did not foresee by any means what was down there.
Yeah.
So he started off his conversation with Meyer, kind of basking in the neutrality of Switzerland and being like, we don't play favorites or sides. We let you do whatever you want to do. That's what the Swiss
He's a
people
sweet
are all
talker,
about. Yeah.
for sure.
Well, he's hiding behind, he's using apathy and indifference and neutrality as an excuse to let evil be perpetrated.
Yeah.
By claiming that like they have nothing to do with it, he's turning a blind eye and he's letting evil people get away with stuff. And it's first mentioned, so to like, or very heavily implied by, whatever money you've got, because we know he thinks money is dirty. So if you've got money, he thinks you're a terrible person.
There's always,
So whatever
dirt on money.
dirty, filthy money you've got is yours, because we're just gonna like hide it so that no one can touch it and let you do what you want, because that's just the Swiss way. But the whole time he knows he's hiding evil
Of course.
things, and then we come to decide he's hiding like the worst kind of evil.
Yeah. It was
So,
really sad.
Yeah, he's a terrible, terrible man pretending to be a neutral person.
Yeah, I feel like by not making a choice, you are making a choice,
Yeah.
If you're not putting any action towards stopping something,
Yeah.
you're supporting the other thing.
And that's the thing. And that's
yeah, go ahead.
that's bad enough as it is, because that's absolutely true. But he's not even doing that. He's doing horrible things, knowing he's doing horrible things, but pretending
he thinks
that he's
because
one of those
he's not
neutral
harming
people.
anyone. Because from what I got from the story, after the Nazis collected or like rounded up all the Jews, he just went and like collected all their things. That's what I got
Yeah.
from the story.
Oh yeah, he
right?
didn't take anything from anybody.
Yeah, it was just like there,
Yeah.
and then he
They
like, went
did
and
it. I'm
collected
just
it.
holding it for
And
them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation, but yeah. So Myers basically tells him like, "Hey, this isn't. You were part of the problem, basically," and he stabs his hand on the table. We've seen a lot of that happening on the show. It's very gross and yeah.
It's a trademark of the show now.
Absolutely. We have to see blood every episode or it's not a Hunter show. And he asks, what's his name? Frederick. He's like, he shows him the ring, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he shows him the ring and it's like, this is just one of many
Yeah.
of the stories that you collected.
Frederick, like, well, you could doctor those photos.
Yeah.
Like, not that those photos even had to be doctored. They were just close-ups of items.
He was still denying everything.
Yeah.
Like,
And then
dude.
so he shows
They
him,
always do.
like, we've been in the room.
Yeah.
Like, we were there. We know.
And that's the ring just carried so much story and just so much emotion because we saw Helen, who was a seamstress during the war, and her lover, whose name I think was Jacob. And they have this whole plan to escape the camp, and Jacob ends up getting killed, which was really sad. Yeah, we were kind of confused about the difference between Jacob and young Meyer because those characters look a little too
Jacob
similar
wears
for me.
glasses. That's
Yeah, I was just
It
like,
took
why
me-
is he dating two women? Like,
well, and that's so. I mean, one of the things about what the Nazis did to these refugees in the Holocaust is they stripped them away of their identity. So they took away anything that would make them stand out or identifiable. So there's a lot of, especially the female characters,
For
I have a hard time telling them apart.
yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Because that was an intentional thing Nazis did, and it's screwing with the
worked. It
show. You know, I
absolutely
mean, it
did
had an effect.
Yeah.
So yeah, Jacob, his only thing that made him stand out from Meyer was the fact he had glasses on. But yeah, the whole episode, I kept wondering who these people are, which characters are we seeing younger selves of? Like, I was just lost on why we were being told this story until Logan Lerman's character, Jonah, held that ring, and then it just hit me.
Yeah.
And as I kept hearing Murray say that from the moment they got in that room, like, these are all stories. These are all people's lives, every last one of them. And we got one story from one ring in one room.
Do you think they're gonna come back for it in the later episodes, or just expose that there's this, treasure down there?
To be honest, no, because if they reveal that treasure, it'd have to be a very tricky way they go about doing it, so as to not explain their own involvement.
Right.
Like, they can't.
It has to be anonymous for sure.
Yeah, they have to go back for it later. They can't reveal anything about what they've been doing.
Myers did say, I think in his communication with Frederick, he says you have to like call, I think some organization and let them know that, you have all of this. So each and everyone can be distributed to the owner's family.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah, I think he did.
Okay.
So that was something that, would have definitely separated the hunters from that whole situation.
If the bank manager just fessed up,
yeah, but now he's dead. So we don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, that whole scene of him blowing his head up, like...
I didn't see that coming.
You cannot predict anything on this show, which is... Yeah. I wanted to say it's a fun part, but like, ooh, it's very dark, very hard to watch. But, we're always filled with surprises and yeah. So we're going to move on to our special segment, which Keven has kindly prepared for us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was something I didn't catch about this episode until I read an article that came out today from Forbes magazine. Lonnie is our master of disguise. But when we see him in the bank heist, he wore the exact same outfit that he's worn to that bank twice. And after dating the branch manager, and all he did was put on a ski mask. And I was like, dude, you're supposed to be the master of disguise.
Wow.
Meanwhile,
he's not the smartest person. He's never proved to be.
But that was his skill set.
But his team should have realized that.
Like he's the guy who kind of like, he's got the charisma to help like work around people, which he was very successful with the branch manager. But he was pitched as the master of disguise. And meanwhile, I'm noticing Harriet was the one who put on a disguise and played a role and like really got into character for her role.
She was amazing in that.
But I'm like, but she's the nun, And I didn't catch it, but she still held up her vow to be veiled while she was portraying the janitor.
Right.
And the only reason I caught this was because of this article from Forbes magazine. They put out an article after interviewing John Dunn, who is the costume designer for the show. He's a veteran costume designer from New York City who has been working on shows like Boardwalk Empire and Vinyl, which also takes place in New York in the 1970s.
Yeah, all period drama.
Yeah, so he was like the perfect guy to go for Hunters. When he was designing this project, he said, like, having worked on Vinyl, he was like, well, I know the look, but we're not going to focus on the music industry and not everyone's going to look cool. Like, this is more, everyone's going to be medium cool. They're going to look real, but heightened. So we've been seeing a lot of comic book influence in the show. They constantly drop names and use parallelisms from origin stories and famous comic books.
Yeah, Jonah does that a lot.
Yeah, so he took that comic book influence, being fully aware of what this show is, and gave everyone a specific look. He said like had a graphic novel comic book element, so everyone has a basic iconic look throughout the entire series. And if you want to go check out the article on Forbes, he breaks down every character and describes what their look is and why. I thought it was a great way to understand the characters. One little tidbit is that Jonah always has a piece of yellow or gold on him every episode. Yeah.
Wow.
And they gave him the
look
most.
Out for that now.
Yeah, me too. They gave him the most standardized look because he's the Peter Parker of the group. So it's like striped t-shirts, denim jeans, for the more or less. But he gave everything. But in relation to Harriet, she's a nun, but this is not in the 1960s, it's the 70s. So it's post-Vatican II when the standards for nuns, like their dress code was a little looser. So she's the one character who got to look super cool and stylish. Like she's got these badass boots that any action star from the 1970s would be lucky to have. And so because this dress code is a little looser, she got to don the veil in the form of the handkerchief for the janitor. And I just thought that was a really cool little tidbit.
Absolutely. Wow.
John Dunn does great work, and it was really cool to see him kind of lay out everything. I highly recommend the article.
Yes. Sister Harriet always looks like so badass. And she's, even though she's all dressed in this nun attire, she still looks like she's ready to kick ass.
Well, and he told everyone, like, he wasn't trying to capture that super cool, edgy look from Vinyl. He wanted to capture, like, genuine Brooklyn. And so every character, like Roxy, is clearly based on blaxploitation films, but he wanted to ground it in Brooklyn. So it's definitely that theatrical look, but grounded in something real. So every character does that, except for Harriet, because she's
it's it's a good balance for every character for sure. And I was looking out for the set designs. I think in the first episode we were talking about how when there's a Nazi, everything is just red in their homes and all that. And I caught a lot of that too. So.
Well, so Dunn mentioned that they came up with, I didn't write it down. They came up with like a color code for everybody. And the Nazis, again, red, every one of them at some point, like they've got something red on. Their whole look is trying to blend in with normal America. So it's a little subtle to tell like what the Nazi look is.
Right.
But they're all wearing red shoes, red cufflinks, something.
It is
it's always
amazing
there.
how much thought they put into every aspect of a TV show. And we don't notice it because it's just that good. And we're just supposed to notice it.
It's clearly a show that everyone who's working on it cares about.
Absolutely.
And is bringing their A game.
Absolutely. And we're here for it. Absolutely. So we're going to dive into... Do you have time for news, or you want to go to
I would like to do news, only because I felt bad. Our last episode, I pitched the clickbaity headline to Janice that like Josh Radnor broke down in a New York restaurant.
It was a little dramatic.
Yeah, and then I didn't like. We kind of ran out of time because I got way too lost in trying to explain what Morse code is. You were there. So Josh Radnor was coming back from a press event in Paris. He had a little bit of jet lag, but he was sitting down in a diner in New York City, and they handed him a plate of scrambled eggs. And he had this just immense, overwhelming sensation of gratitude for food. The fact that he was hungry and he could eat. Yeah. So he wrote this great blog about it. He calls them Muse letters. He does this like once every 2 months or so, and sends them out as like an email blast. But this one got posted to Thrive Global. And he basically was talking about that he just takes that feeling of gratitude for this meal for granted. And judging by this meal, he does it 3 times a day at least. Yeah. And so the article, it didn't get too deep into everything, but it was kind of this piece about dismissing discontent and dissatisfaction because those are things that people easily are drawn to. It's kind of our default reaction, and just reminding yourself to to be filled with gratitude and hope and faith and forgiveness and patience and humility. He said something I thought was really cool, that he's got this idea, as we all do, that a better life is awaiting for me just over the horizon. I can have a better life if I just adjust a few things. And because everyone wants to have a better life, but at the same time, you have a great life, and you shouldn't be. I'm totally botching this whole thing. Yeah, just like he's not interested in having blind optimism. He's not interested in closing off himself from these negative emotions. But we're more receptive to those negative emotions than we are positive ones. Read this article. He's putting it way better than I am. He basically said like, I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to save the world like he's trying to do in this show. I just have to be grateful for what I have.
That's all you need, honestly. When you take a second to just like, change your perspective and see what you do have, it's powerful for sure.
He said gratitude isn't a regular feature of his life, but it's a counterintuitive, countercultural practice that he needs to have more willing to practice.
Just remind yourself to be thankful.
Yeah.
Do you have any predictions for next episode?
Next episode? God, no.
I can start it if you want.
Yes, please.
I'm just
AfterBuzz TV predictions.
So I think Biff Simpson is going to meet his fate pretty early on in the show than I'm thinking, because the Colonel is not someone you play with, and we know Travis doesn't take shit.
I am actually looking forward to that. I love that Biff got so cocky as to like undo their entire master plan.
He's
that's
out of
awesome.
control, and I just want to see him suffer like he made everyone else suffer in the beginning of the show. And I'm ready for that. If you don't have, do you have any? Can you think?
No, I'm looking forward to the chaos that his actions create for the Nazis and watching them scramble. I want to see bad happen to them.
Yeah. I'm hoping Sister Harriet is good, because I love her so much, because if she turns out to be a Nazi, I will not be able to handle this show.
I'm so hoping
because that's a crazy prediction.
Triple agent. I know that worries me. I don't know what to think. I know what I'm dreading. But again, like we talked about earlier, she's so committed to this cause and this bank heist, so why would she? I think they're going to finally let Jonah tag along. He's definitely proved himself on the fly. Like if he wasn't there, Joe would be dead, and they would have gotten nothing out of this. The whole episode, the justice that was dished out, all would have been canceled. So he's definitely part
Jonah,
of the team now.
he has no choice but to be with the Hunters at this point.
And they have no choice to let him along. That's the important part.
Yeah.
He finally committed at the top of the episode. But they were like, dude, you screwed up so many times in so many ways. You can't just like walk in and out of here.
He saved Joe's life.
Exactly.
So you get points for that.
And Joe was one of the biggest people he had to win over.
Yeah.
So Joe can't argue with him.
If you win over Joe, you win over everyone, you know. But that's our show, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really enjoyed this time with you. Come here after you watch the episode and, try to digest it with us. And we're always here for you. Keven, where can our fans find you on the internet?
Y'all can find me on Twitter at Keven Allen Says and Instagram at Keven Allen Graham.
And you can find me on Instagram at NiamJanice on Instagram, NYAMJNICE. I keep trying to give my email out to people for some reason. It's really weird. But thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you guys next episode. Bye.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.